We're going to bring in now former prosecutor Dan Shore and criminal defense attorney Esther Panich for more on this. So Dan, we just heard that news from Alicia. I'd like you to respond to that as a former prosecutor. You're hearing the prosecution start their strategy, talking to first responders first. What do you make of that move, and will you think, is this case actually going to go to a full trial?
Well, they're proceeding in the way that you would expect them to. You want to first establish that the suspect was at the scene, how he was first confronted by law enforcement. Remember, the preliminary hearing is only to establish probable cause, which is a much lower standard than beyond the reasonable doubt. So the prosecution will show that there's evidence showing that he committed all of these crimes, and that will take a while because so many people were killed here, and then it will move forward to a trial stage. However, there's always the possibility that there might be some kind of plea agreement to life in prison. That's the only possible plea that I can imagine.
And I want to talk about the plea in a moment, but Esther, first talk to us about what the judge did here, because in this case, and it's a very rare move by the judge, that Alicia also mentioned this, that they're allowing the defense to call their own witnesses, and that happens apparently in Colorado, according to one report, in less than 1% of these preliminary hearings. So it's very rare. How does that change things potentially?
Well, it allows the defense to neutralize what's been coming out by the state and this horrific evidence and witness testimony that's going to come out about 12 people who were brutally murdered while sitting in their seats watching a movie. So this is going to give the defense an attempt to try to explain the conduct, which in the end they are going to hope will mitigate or at least excuse, if he was insane, why this in fact happened. So I think, and also I think the defense wants the same opportunity to put on evidence, to perfect their record. Eventually, it's possible that some of these witnesses won't be available for trial, and that's why they want to get them on right now. So I'm not sure, because we don't know who those witnesses are yet, why they're calling them now, but I think the judge is just trying to make sure that this trial is absolutely fair, and if the defense is asking to put on evidence, then I think there's no harm to the court or to the prosecution in allowing them to do that.
It's interesting. The defense did talk to the university psychiatrist in one of the hearings, and we just heard that description from Alicia about the cop saying that the eyes of Holmes's eyes were these large pupils, and we haven't talked a lot specifically about medication potentially here or anything like that. Dan, if you bring in all of those different factors, medication, insanity, where do you even begin a plea agreement here if you're a prosecutor?
Well, insanity is, I don't think, going to be successful here because you have such a planned attack on this theater. It was thought out. He obviously bought the weapons, he bought armor, he booby-trapped his apartment, so it's not the haphazard type of insane act that would lead to a successful insanity defense. Now, as for a plea agreement, the only plea I could possibly imagine would be life in prison with no possibility for parole. That would spare the victims' families from having to watch a trial and go through this, and the defendant would be removed from society forever. Other than that, he is facing the death penalty, and that's his incentive to take such a plea.
Esther, your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with Dan, because that would be the only plea I think that the community would support, that the victims, I don't know if they would support it or not, but if they think that the preliminary hearing is going to be bad for the victims, just wait until the trial. It's just more and more horrific, and it doesn't seem to end. So if there is talk about a plea, I agree it would. I can't imagine anything less than life without parole. But if it takes the death penalty off the table, then it may be something that the prosecutors would consider in conjunction with the wishes of the victims' families.
Yeah, as you take a look, we just saw on the screen there the victims' faces, and one of the larger questions that we're not going to be able to answer really today is, what does justice look like really in a case like this? Appreciate your thoughts, Dan and Esther, always. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.